The recording has started. This conference is being recorded.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just. May Allah's Salam Alaikum. We are very thankful to Allah for allowing us to once again meet with you for congregational prayer service. So many things we are thankful for. I see Allah's promises coming true with me, and it's a wonderful thing to know these things. And I want to remind you that prayer is not a futile operation. There's nothing futile about prayer. If you recognize that we rely on Allah, always remember, when we say Allah, we know what we are saying. Allah is the truth. You are either a word shipper of truth or a word shipper of lies. When you understand the language, then you bear witness that everything that people praise you for is due to Allah. Do you understand? And everything that they get on you about as far as messing up something, that's you. Do you understand? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All praise is due to Allah. Let's stand in that prayer. Attention. Original salute. Ready front. Prayer position. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. And I bear witness that I know of none who deserves to be served or worshipped beside thee. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, all holy praise is due and be to thee, O Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful Master of the Day of Requital. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. O Allah, please continue to guide us and keep us on the right path and way, the straight path and way of thee and those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, not the crooked paths and ways of Satan and those upon whom thy wrath is or will be brought down, nor the foolish paths and ways of those who go astray or who are led astray, even after they have heard and been given the true understanding of thy holy word and teachings. Truly, I have again turned myself to thee, O Allah, striving to be totally upright, to thee who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not of the polytheists. Truly my prayers, my sacrifices, my life and my death are all for thee, O Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate hast thou, and this am I commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King. I know of no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant. I've been greatly unjust to myself, and I confess my faults and weaknesses. So please grant me and my true followers and family continuous protection against all of our faults and weaknesses. For none grants protection against faults and weaknesses but thee. And guide us to and instill within us the best of moral character and thoughts. For none can guide us to and instill within us the best of moral character and thoughts but thee. And turn us away from and remove from us the evil and indecent moral character and thoughts. For none can turn us away from and remove from us the evil and indecent moral character and thoughts but thee. And my Lord, please bless me to keep up prayer. And of my offspring and followers and their offspring too, our Lord, accept the prayers. And our Lord, grant thy continuous protection and mercy and forgiveness and strength and endurance to me and to my family and to my faithful followers and their families in these the days that the reckoning is being taken. And our Father Allah, in heaven praised is and be thy holy and righteous name. Let thy kingdom come and thy will be done on the earth as it is written in the heaven. Give us this day the understanding and hearts that are ever inclined to truth and righteousness. And forgive us our trespasses, and help us to forgive those of our brethren who may trespass against us. And leave us not alone during the times of our temptations, but please stand by us and deliver us from all the evils thereof. For thine is the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and the power and the glory over them are thine forever and ever. And our Lord, please do not punish us if we forget or make a mistake. And our Lord, do not allow to be laid upon us a burden as was laid on those before us. And our Lord, do not allow to be imposed upon us that which we have not the strength to bear. And pardon us, and grant to us thy protection, and have mercy on us, and forgive us. For thou art our protector. So grant us the victory over the unbelieving and disbelieving people, and over the hypocrites and the devils, and especially over the weaknesses and afflictions that lie within each of us and whereby we have been afflicted. And save us from the hell that thou hast promised the devils and their followers. And grant that we not only live to see the hereafter, but live therein with thee forever and ever. Amen, amen, and amen. Attention, hut. Original salute. Ready, front. You may be seated. Many of you may think that it is, if you're not careful, uh, may find yourself second guessing me about what I do. You know what faith is? What does faith mean? You don't have to understand everything that I do to trust me in doing it. Now, I eventually explains to you why I do things in the way I do them. Anyway, but I'm not obligated to do that. Do you explain to your feet everything you want to do? It's just like practices that you've seen in the black community over in what we call the savage part of Africa, which is actually not as savage as it appears. Just like the practice of walking on hot coals with your bare feet, as in the burning coals went forth at his feet. That's a living book. You shall go forth and tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. That appears to be something really tough to do, to walk on hot coals. It's not if your feet have become like leather. I just want you to understand that things are not always as they appear. It's just like I heard them, Lawrence O'Donnell talking about them white boys who was chanting uh, blood and mud and Jews shall not replace us. Now, I want to say to all of you that's making them chants, I know what blood and mud mean. I'm blood and mud. I didn't come from another people. I came out the earth. And by the way, I placed you here. And if I want to replace you, I will. And it ain't a damn thing you can do about it. With your arrogant behind. Have any of them offered an argument that they didn't come from us? No, sir. Then why are they acting a fool about it? Yep. Getting sick of you. Keep clowning. You done seen the things that I tell you that would happen. You done seen them happening. I told you you was going to be going crazy, killing up your own. What you see them doing? I don't get no joy out of watching people get murdered. And anybody who does ain't right up in their head. How do you rejoice over seeing your children get murdered? How do you rejoice over watching your children fight each other? Do you teach them to be happy to see each other get hurt? And if you do, you're not right in your head. in the first place, there ain't no J in the Hebrew language. So the proper name is not Jew. That's what these call themselves, who are not Jews, but are the synagogue of Satan. That's not. I'm gonna tell you something. God done already told you that the messengers of God, the Jews, are going to inherit the earth. That means replace you. And it's easy. Soon you're going to be ran out of the places that you are. You're going to be driven. And when you get to where we driving you, you're going to admit that calamities is what ran you there. It'll fix you. I ain't going to tell you where it's going, where you're going to be. You'll know when you get there. Got a surprise for you. But anyway, I prayed for the FBI's success. What, you thought I was lying? Why shouldn't I read the report? If you don't want to hear it, you know what to do with that phone. You know what to do with that computer. But don't come in here suggesting to me nothing about you gonna guide me in what I should and should not do. You didn't raise me. I don't take orders from you. I give orders to you. And if you got an ounce of good sense, you'll take my orders. On page 143. According to Gates, in March 2016, what did I say I was going to do today? When? No, I didn't say at prayer service. I remember what I said. According to Gates, in March 2016, Manafort traveled to Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida to meet with Trump. Trump hired him at that time. I said 143. Manafort had no meaningful income at this point in time, but resuscitating his domestic political campaign career could be financially beneficial in the future. Now, remember, when Manafort took the job for the Trump campaign, he took it for free. Well, how was it going to benefit him? Collusion with Russia. Huh? That's right. Ain't no crime collusion. Remember, they've been saying that. Yeah, they were saying there was no collusion. They wasn't accused of collusion. That's the word they invented. The word is conspiracy. That's the crime. So, said Manafort had no meaningful income at this point in time, but resuscitating his domestic political campaign career could be financially beneficial in the future. And when you know what his career had been, they had showed you what his career was, is helping people who were sympathetic to Russia get in positions of power in different governments. And it says, now, people may say, well, like the young man, he had a point. How is this benefiting black people? As though to say black people ain't in charge of nothing in this country. You're right. We're not. But black people wasn't in charge of nothing in the country when Watergate broke. But a black janitor is the one that started the ball rolling to catch the crooks. Is that right? So, I mean, I'm in the house. Just view me as the janitor. then it says Gates reported that Manafort intended, if Trump won the presidency, to remain outside the administration and monetize his relationship with the administration. Monetize means capitalize off of, look, I can get you hooked up with the Trump administration because I'm in with the in crowd. Huh? And he did get some money from banks, promising a man that he would be appointed to over the treasury or something. I forgot what he promised the man. But the CEO of a bank loaned him some money that he had no business loaning him. You remember when that hit the news? Okay. And it says, subtitle Roman numeral 2, Paul Manafort's campaign period contacts. Just a moment. Immediately upon joining the campaign, Manafort directed Gates to prepare for his review separate memoranda addressed to Deripaska, Akhmetov, Serhiy Lyovoshkin, Serhiy Lyovoshkin, and Boris Kolesnikov. The last three being Ukrainian oligarchs who were senior opposition bloc officials. Now, I'm trying to show you here the FBI, while all of us sleeping, while all of us going about our daily activities, they was watching all of these people that was in this country potentially to harm this country, which means to harm you. It don't make no. Let me tell you something. If somebody decide to burn down a hospital or burn down a house, they tell you they don't give a damn about nobody that's sleeping in that house. And when I say a damn, they had, you know what the term "give a damn"? They used to have I learned this a long time ago in high school, or either junior high. I don't forget which one, but they had a coin, a type of coin or something that they called a tinker's dam. And when they said, I don't give a damn, I don't give a tinker's damn about such and so and such and so and so. Do you understand? And that's what, and then they shortened it to I don't give a damn. Do you understand? See, I told you I know more than you thought I did. But anyway, let's go on. On March 30th, it says the memoranda described Manafort's appointment to the Trump campaign and indicated his willingness to consult on Ukrainian politics in the future. On March 30th, 2016, Gates emailed the memoranda and a press release announcing Manafort's appointment to Kalemnik for translation and dissemination. Dissemination meaning to give out. Do you understand? Manafort later followed up with Kalemnik to ensure his messages had been delivered, emailing on April 11th, 2016, to ask whether Kalimnik had shown, quote, our friends the media coverage of his new role. Manafort wanted to make sure Kalimnik was showing the oligarchs and people that, hey, I'm in a position here where I can do something for you now. I'm valuable to you now. And it says, you remember when that man was standing up outside the courthouse with them signs up, traitor? How much did you get paid for treason? And all that kind of thing. Them signs was right on, man. And it says, Manafort later followed up with Kalimnik to ensure his messages had been delivered, emailing on April 11, 2016, to ask whether Kalimnik had shown his friends, he said, our friends, the media coverage of his new role. Remember when he got appointed as in the campaign, it hit the news really big. And then it says, Kalimnik replied, absolutely, every article. Manafort further asked, how do we use to get whole? Meaning, how do you use this position I'm in to pay you back the money that I owe you and say we even? Huh? How do we use to get whole? Has OVD? You see, OVD is that one of them people that he was talking to, Oleg Vladimirovich, Oleg Vladimir. Excuse me with these names. I'm trying to pronounce them properly. Vladimirovich Deripaska. Oleg Vladimirovich Deripaska. That's who OVD is. Operation Scene. It says, has Deripaska Operation seen this? And Kalimnik wrote back the same day, yes, I have been sending everything to Victor Boyarkin, Deripaska's deputy, who has been forwarding the coverage directly to OVD, to Deripaska. Huh? Gates reported that Manafort said that being hired on the campaign would be, quote, good for business and increase the likelihood that Manafort would be paid the approximately $2 million he was owed for previous political consulting work in Ukraine. Gates also explained to the office that Manafort thought his role, that's the moment, thought his role in the campaign could help, quote, confirm that Deripaska had dropped the Pericles lawsuit, and that Gates believed Manafort sent polling data to Deripaska as, well, page 144, as discussed further below, so that Deripaska would not move forward with his lawsuit against Manafort. Gates further stated that Deripaska wanted a visa to the United States, that Deripaska could believe that having Manafort in a position inside the campaign or administration might be helpful to Deripaska, and that Manafort's relationship with Trump could help Deripaska in other ways as well. Gates stated, however, that Manafort never told him anything specific about what, if anything, Manafort might be offering Deripaska. He's offering whatever Deripaska wanted him to do. If he was in a position to do it, he was going to be his mole in the administration. Gates also reported that Manafort instructed him. I tell you what, you have to. You notice the FBI don't make a judgment so much as they tell you the evidence they found. And in some of these things, they give you surmises, but they leave the judging to the judges. Do you understand? Here's the evidence. Tell me something. When you hire somebody to, if you work in, they hire you at GM or hire you at Ford. When you get in there, if you get hired, they decide what they want you to do. It's the same with Manafort. If Deripaska wanted, if he was useful, it wasn't no specific thing that he'd be useful for, just whatever they want him to do. Do you understand? Gates also reported that Manafort instructed him in April 2016 or early May 2016 to send Kalimnik, send to Kalimnik campaign internal polling data. And that's what one thing that Gates says. Listen now, Gates also reported that Manafort instructed him in April 2016 or early May 2016 to send Kalimnik campaign internal polling data and other updates so that Kalimnik, in turn, could share it with Ukrainian oligarchs. Well, if they wanted to do like Mr. Putin said, help Trump win, they needed polling data. If for nothing else, to see what, look, we did such and so and such and so and so. What did the polls look like after that? Right? Gates understood that the information would also be shared with Deripaska. Gates, now they got redacted, probably some other names there. Gates reported to the office of the FBI that he did not know why Manafort wanted him to send polling information, but Gates thought it was a way to showcase Manafort's work. And Manafort wanted to open doors to jobs after the Trump campaign ended. Now, if Gates was that dense, that's why Manafort chose him. You know, let me tell you something. It's not so much that Gates was as dense as that, but when you think you're dealing with people who are, now I'm going to give Gates the benefit of the doubt, that have no interest in helping you to hurt their country. They figure, the last thing they figure is the thing you doing is working with another government to undermine the government that you are under. Do you understand? I mean, you notice that they say the family is the last one to know. Everybody know that the crook is the crook, but the ones who love him. Because the ones who love him are the last ones that would look at things, his deeds and actions, and think that they had some sinister motivation. That's why the loved ones are the last ones to know. But that's what you have an immune system for. That's what you have the Justice Department for, the FBI. They want to be the first ones to know. Do you understand? And so they was watching these boys. Gates said that Manafort's instructions included sending internal polling data prepared for the Trump campaign by pollster Tony Fabrizio. Fabrizio had worked with Manafort for years and was brought into the campaign by Manafort. Now you know all these Italian names and stuff that's coming in here. You know, Mussolini was an Italian working with Hitler. I would have thought that you all would have learned something about working with uh, tyrants. Didn't you see what happened to them people? Let me tell you something. Why do you think every tyrannical government that rose up always failed, always ended badly? That should tell you something. Do you think that's an accident? It can be summed up just like this. The wages of sin is death. What is sin? Disobedience to the commandments of God. Tell me something. How many of y'all put up with stuff you don't like in your house forever before you tell whoever doing something you don't like in your house, you out of here? Huh? Now you see why governments that were tyrannical governments always got put out? In my Father's house, there are many mansions. There's lots of continents on this earth, relatively speaking. And there are lots of islands. In my Father's house are many places to live. But it's still my Father's house. And he's over all 196,940,000 square miles of it. And he ain't gonna tolerate you acting a fool too much longer. He always said, son of man, he raised up a warner right there in the middle of you. Say, you, come here. And he just raised up somebody. Said, now, I'm gonna straighten your mind out. Now you go there and tell them that I said they better cut that out. You notice all the prophets said, thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord. Didn't it? Yes, sir. But what did they tell you one day was coming? You wouldn't hear them. So what was the response of those? You know the response. Look at them. Just look what they're doing right there in front of you now. So it's all a joke to you, huh? Wait and see. You just wait and see. Fabrizio had worked with Manafort for years and was brought into the campaign by Manafort. Gates stated that in accordance with Manafort's instruction, he periodically sent Kalimnik polling data by way of WhatsApp. And Gates then deleted the communications on a daily basis. Gates further told the office that after Manafort left the campaign in mid-August, Gates sent Kalimnik polling data less frequently, and that the data he sent was more publicly available information and less internal data. So you see, Mr. Gates wasn't totally innocent. Huh? But he was trying to ease himself out, when you got your hand in the lion's mouth, you got to ease it out. Huh? And so Gates' account about polling data is consistent with multiple emails that Kalimnik sent to U.S. associates and press contacts between late July and mid-August of 2016. Those emails referenced, quote, unquote, internal polling. Those emails that were referenced were called internal polling, described the status of the Trump campaign, and Gates, on January 31st, in 2018, 302 at 17, Gates 9 is telling you where you can go to find these things. That's for the Congress to be able to, if they want to investigate this, they can go and look at what the FBI found on that at these particular places in the report. And so I'm not going there because I don't understand most of that. And I don't think that it's necessary for me to understand it. It's necessary for those who are going to have to make a decision about what the depth of what Gates did and Manafort in relationship to the knowledge of the other campaign, the people in the campaign and in the administration, on whether or not it adds up in the mind of circumstantial evidence that these people were conspiring with the Russian government to undermine the democratic process in America. So now it says, let me take up on page 145 after it says, with Gates' account about polling data is consistent with multiple emails that Kalimnik sent to U.S. associates and press contacts between late July and mid-August of 2016. Those emails were referenced, they were called internal polling, described the status of the Trump campaign, and they described the status of the Trump campaign and and Manafort's role in it, and assessed Trump's prospects for victory. In other words, like I said earlier, they needed polling data. I mean, what is the point of interfering and then doing a poll if the people who are interfering, who helping you, you don't show them whether or not their help is helping you? The polling data is what they needed to know in order to keep, it's just like if you hitting somebody and they don't show no signs that where you hitting them is hurting, then you need to pick another spot. Is that right? So the polling data is what told them whether or not that what they was doing was working. Do you understand? That's just one of the things that they was doing. But like they said, you hear them talking openly in the news about that ain't all that they did to undermine the election. They also hacked into some of the computers and things that for the election itself. They don't know whether the election was tainted. That's why I told them, it's too late to lock the barn. Now the horse done got out. Then, since the horse is out, turn those voting machines, have some tweaking done to them where they can print out a paper ballot and let the people cast paper ballots from that the machine print out, that they can look at their ballot and tell whether or not it's what they voted for, and then put it in the box and count them ballots. Don't trust that electronic machine no more. Because whoever controls that machine controls who wins the election. And you can do that. Let me show you an example. You don't need no whole bunch of people to be in an office to rig an election. They have what's called team viewer. If you got one person in there that will allow you access to that computer through team viewer, you can go in there and put whatever you want on that computer by way of something to slip in there once the place closed down at night, and you can go in there and slip in there whatever you want. You can even reprogram. There's no such thing as a machine that is that requires programming. There's no such thing as a machine that requires programming not being able to be hacked and programmed to do something that you didn't design it to do. The machine has no loyalty. I'm still waiting on an answer to whose idea. When did it get on the ballot? When did it get on the American ballot? I'm asking white people this. When did you ever vote? When did you ever say yes, because it was on the ballot that you wanted to go from paper ballots to voting machines? When did that happen? I don't recall there ever being a discussion about that. I don't say that to be facetious. I don't say that to try to make it look like I got some say-so over your government. But I am asking you, I thought that the American people, that white people decide on whether or not they want to make a change in something in America. Not just people who are in charge, because you put them there. When did you vote on that? I missed that election. When was that ever on the ballot? To go from paper ballots to trusting machines to register what you want to do. Something as serious as who's going to be in charge of your country? And you trust that to a machine? All right. I wish one of y'all would tell me the answer to what I asked, though. If anybody know, when was that ever on the ballot? No, I don't need you to. I think I just said that. You see, I want the ones who know to tell us about it. Somebody know. What's the big secret? If it was a lawful act, why you ain't telling somebody what happened? Everybody assuming that everybody voted on it, but don't nobody remember voting on it. I assume you assuming that it was voted on. When you turned your voting ballot that you cast, when you turned it over to a machine, you turned your democratic republic into a dictatorship. You're following the dictates of a machine. Before, you had people standing there counting them ballots. Well, it took so long. So, at least you could trust your own count. The office of the FBI also obtained contemporaneous emails that shed light on the purpose of the communications with Deripaska and that are consistent with Gates' account. For example, in response to a July 7th, 2016 email from a Ukrainian reporter about Manafort's failed Deripaska-backed investment, Manafort asked Kalimnik whether there had been any movement on, quote, this issue with our friend. Gates stated that, quote, our friend likely referred to Deripaska. And Manafort told the office that the, quote, issue and our biggest interest, as stated below, was a solution to the Deripaska-Pericles issue. Kalimnik replied, I am carefully optimistic on the question of our biggest interests. Our friend Boyorkin said there is lately significantly more attention to the campaign in his boss Deripaska's mind, and he will be most likely looking for ways to reach out to you pretty soon, understanding all the time sensitivity. I am more than sure that it will be resolved, and we will get back to the original relationship with V's boss, Deripaska. 8 minutes later, Manafort replied that Kalimnik should tell Boyorkin's boss, quote, boss, a reference to Deripaska, quote, that if he needs private briefings, we can accommodate that. Manafort has alleged to the office that he was willing to brief Deripaska only on public campaign matters and gave an example. How could Manafort tell the FBI office? He's lying. He had already been sending private information about the campaign to Deripaska. Well, he said, Manafort has alleged to the office that he was willing to brief Deripaska only on public campaign matters and gave an example. Quote, well, not quote, but colon, why Trump selected Mike Pence as the vice presidential running mate. Manafort said he never gave Deripaska a briefing. Manafort noted that if Trump won, Deripaska would want to use Manafort to advance whatever interests Deripaska had in the United States and elsewhere. Well, that was already perfectly clear when Manafort was asking if he could be some help, or that if he got in there, could this make him whole and all that kind of stuff. You could use me. Huh? Okay. Page 146. Roman number 3. Paul Manafort's 2 campaign period meetings with, this is subtitle. Subtitle Roman numeral 3. Paul Manafort's 2 campaign period meetings with Konstantin Kalimnik in the United States. Manafort twice met with Kalimnik in person during the campaign period. Once in May and again in August of 2016. The first meeting took place on May 7th, 2016 in New York City. In the days leading to the meeting, Kalemnik had been working to gather information about the political situation in Ukraine. That included information gleaned from a trip that former Party of Regions official Yuri Boyko and, Yuri Barko had recently taken to Moscow, a trip that likely included meetings between Boyko and high-ranking Russian officials. Kalemnik then traveled to Washington, D.C. on or about May 5th, 2016. While in Washington, Kalemnik had prearranged meetings with State Department employees. Late on the evening of May 6th, Gates arranged for Kalemnik to take a 3 a.m. train to meet Manafort in New York for breakfast on May 7th. According to Manafort, during the meeting, he and Kalemnik talked about events in Ukraine, and Manafort briefed Kalemnik on the Trump campaign, expecting Kalemnik to pass the information back to individuals in Ukraine and elsewhere. Manafort stated that opposition bloc members recognized Manafort's position on the campaign was an opportunity, but Kalemnik did not ask for anything. The man, boy, this is rich. You get on the train to ask somebody to breakfast, to not ask for nothing. Get up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to go have breakfast with somebody. But he didn't ask for nothing. Okay. It says Kalemnik spoke about a plan of Boyko to boost election participation in the eastern zone of Ukraine, which was the base for the opposition bloc. Kalemnik returned to Washington, D.C. right after the meeting with Manafort. Manafort met with Kalemnik a second time at the Grand Havana Club in New York City on the evening of August 2nd, 2016. The events leading to the meeting, we're on page 146. The events The events leading to the meeting are as follows. On July 28, 2016, Kalemnik flew from Kiev to Moscow. The next day, Kalemnik wrote to Manafort requesting that they meet using coded language about a conversation he had that day. In an email with a subject line, quote, "Black Caviar," Kalemnik wrote, you notice whenever they're doing something that's undercover, they call it black this or black that, where they, what? Meaning what? Is that we got to keep this in the dark. We don't want to let this come out. But anyway, I met today with the guy who gave you your biggest black caviar jar several years ago. This is what Kalemnik wrote. I met today with the guy who gave you your biggest black caviar jar several years ago. We spent about 5 hours talking about his story, and I have several important messages from him to you. He asked me to go and brief you on our conversation. I said I have to run it by you first, but in principle, I am prepared to do it. It has not, it has to do about the future of his, page 147, his country, and is quite interesting. Manafort identified, quote, the guy who gave you your biggest black caviar jar as Yanukovych. He explained that in 2010, he and Yanukovych had lunch to celebrate the recent presidential election. Yanukovych gave Manafort a large jar of black caviar that was worth approximately $30,000 to $40,000. Manafort's then why was they speaking of it in
hidden terms. Anyway, they're telling anything now. Manafort's identity. Remember, the FBI revoked the agreement with Manafort because he was lying. Do you understand? It says Manafort's identification of Yanukovych as the guy who gave you your biggest black caviar jar, quote unquote, is consistent with Kalemnik being in Moscow, where Yanukovych resided. When Kalemnik wrote, quote, I met today with the guy, and with a December 2016 email in which Kalemnik referred to Yanukovych as BG. Manafort replied to Kalemnik's July 29 email, quote, Tuesday, August 2nd is best. Tuesday or Wednesday in New York City, NYC. 3 days later, on July 31st, 2016, Kalemnik flew back to Kiev from Moscow, and on that same day wrote to Manafort that he needed, quote, about 2 hours for their meeting because it is a long caviar story to tell. Yeah. See how he get caught in his lie. But anyway, Kalemnik. Now you know what caviar is, right? It's fish eggs, right? You remember how they hacked into the DNC with spearfishing, right? And hacked in there and saw some of the eggs and brought them out of there, right? Well, that's what that suggests to me. That's what the caviar thing is about. But anyway, it says Kalemnik wrote that he would arrive at JFK on August 2nd at 7:30 p.m. And he and Manafort agreed to a late dinner that night. Documentary evidence, including flight phone and hotel records and the timing of text messages exchanged, confirms the dinner took place as planned on August 2nd. Now, I want to say to any of the congressional oversight people that may have tuned in to me reading this, you feel free to contact me if you want me to come in and help you to decipher a lot of this so-called spoof language that they're using to talk about things. I can make some connections for you and be glad to come make some connections for you. And you ain't got to tell nobody. I won't tell nobody. So we can just, I can help you as any way that I can. That go for the FBI too. If you need my help, just holler. I'll be glad to help you. As to the contents of the meeting itself, no, I ain't got to hide and say it. If I tell you that I'm with you, I mean that. I don't say that I'm with you on something. If I think you wrong, I ain't gonna get with you. But if I think you right, and how can I say I'm for right and won't help do right? As bad as these people talking about they believe in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, mad at me for offering salvation to white people, while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said there are white Muslims in America and lots of them. And they recognize and respect you. He said you must recognize and respect them. What did I miss? You who say that I'm you know, they won't say it to my face, but they'll call me a hypocrite behind my back. What am I a hypocrite to? I'm doing what the messenger said should be done. He told you not only it should be done, he told you it will be done. You can't rebuild the nation. the only one doing it. Because I'm the only one who can. And that's written in the book. It said, except the Lord build the nation, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. A nation of Islam cannot be built by anyone other than God. Since Islam means entire submission to the will of God, if God ain't at the head of it, how can you claim to be doing God's will? Jesus prayed for it. He said, thy will be done. Who was he talking about? He sure wasn't talking about himself. And since God is the truth is a word. But it said the word was with God and the word was God. The word was made flesh. Well, how's the word made flesh? Because Allah is the best knower of the truth. Who knows better? Who understands the truth better than me? Step up and let's see what you understand. As to the contents of the meeting itself, the accounts of Manafort and Gates, who arrived late to the dinner, differ in certain respects. But their versions of events, when assessed alongside available documentary evidence and what Kalimnik told business associate Sam Patton, indicate that at least three principal topics were discussed. First, Manafort and Kalimnik discussed a plan to resolve the ongoing political problems in Ukraine by creating an autonomous republic in its more industrialized eastern region of Donbass. Page 148. And having Yanukovych, the Ukrainian president, ousted in 2014, elected to, who was ousted in 2014, having him elected to head that republic. That plan, Manafort later acknowledged, constituted a quote unquote backdoor means for Russia to control eastern Ukraine. Now, if he's helping Russia through back doors to control Ukraine, what made you think, white people, that he wasn't trying to help Russia control the United States? Is that what you want? If that's what you want, if you tell me that's what you want, I'll shut my mouth and let you do what you want to do. This is your house. How many white people that's listening to me want me to stop reading this report? I mean, I thought you was in charge of your house. I didn't know you wanted Putin to be over your house. If that's what you want, I'd stop. I can shut up. You tired of this democratic republic you got? At least you had. You said the right words when you say you need to take your country back. Well, you ain't took it back as long as you letting these voting machines tell you who won. You need to know who won. And the only way you're going to know who won is you need to not be so too lazy to count the ballots. Are you that lazy? It It worked for you for 200 years. Manafort initially said that if he had not cut off the discussion, Kalimnik would have asked Manafort in the August 2nd meeting to convince Trump to come out in favor of the peace plan. And Yanukovych would have expected Manafort to use his connections in Europe and Ukraine to support the plan to reinstall Yanukovych so Russia could indirectly control that. Manafort also initially told the office that he had said to Kalimnik that the plan was crazy, and the discussion ended, and that he did not recall Kalimnik asking Manafort to reconsider the plan after their August 2nd meeting. Let me say this to you. Whenever someone thinks that they truly have something that is in your best interests, they don't try to trick you into doing it. Because they figure they can convince you. If it truly is in your best interest, all they have to do is show you the evidence that it's in your best interest. Who showed you that it was something wrong with your voting system that you needed to go to machines? And showed the American people that that was in their best interest? Or did one day it just happen? How was Grover Norquist so sure that for the next 20 years, he said, the leadership will come out of the House of Representatives? How was he so sure of that? And now you see that what appears to be the Republican Party following Donald Trump actually is Trump following the dictates of the Grover Norquist hidden puppet masters. Do you understand what's been done to you? Every trick that can be played on people been played on us. You think we don't recognize tricks when we see them? Your papa ain't got no brand new bag. We see that bag and we done seen them tricks before. I done seen people come in and take over. Strangers just popping up from nowhere, winding up with positions of power. Well, where did these people come from? I know where they came from. They were sent in there. Changing laws to make their wrongdoing right. Huh? You done forgot. Just like Lawrence O'Donnell had to remind you that Robert E. Lee was a traitor to the United States. He committed treason. If they had won the war, there would not be a United States. The Confederacy was not the Confederacy of the United States of America. And he running around here hugging the flag as though he cares something about the flag while praising Robert E. Lee, who tried to burn the flag, tried to get rid of it. Donald Trump even admitted he didn't know what the 13 stripes stood for. That ain't all I could tell you he don't know. But if the FBI asks me, I'll tell them. So a lot of things that you could prove that man don't care nothing about this country. But the mere fact he's putting American citizens against each other based on their color, based on their religion, based on anything, any differences that they have. Sound familiar? Ain't that what Willie Lynch said? Put the old one against the young one. Put the light skinned one against the dark skinned one. They running the same game on white people that white people ran on us. You don't recognize your own trick? You better wake up, man. I'm going to tell you something else. I find out a man a coward. He can't lead me nowhere. No, you can't lead me nowhere. No, sir. Coward will get you hurt, man. Get you killed. On a humbug. I find out you don't care nothing about me, you can't lead me nowhere either. That's one sticking point I had with some of them who was in charge in the nation. When I decided that they didn't have my best interest at heart, I didn't pretend. I told the captain. I said, man, y'all don't care nothing about us. You don't need to tell me what he got to do to get me to listen, to beat you upside the head. I say, you put your hands on me, I'm going to hit you back. When I know I'm right, you might kill me, but I'm not going to stand there trembling. You the one ought to be trembling. You ain't got no reason to bother me, and you over here messing with me. Only time I tremble is when I'm in the wrong. Then I get scared because I know Allah ain't with me. You see? So I'm careful about how I treat people. Manafort also initially told the office that he had said to Kalimnik that the plan was crazy and that the discussion ended, and that he did not recall Kalimnik asking Manafort to reconsider the plan after their August 2nd meeting. Manafort said that he reacted negatively to Yanukovych sending years later in, quote, urgent requests when Yanukovych needed him. When confronted with an email written by Kalimnik on or about December 8, 2016, however, Manafort acknowledged Kalimnik raised the peace plan again in that email. Manafort ultimately acknowledged Kalimnik also raised the peace plan in January and February 2017 meetings with Manafort. Second, Manafort, well, it's what it says. Second, Manafort briefed Kalimnik on the state of the Trump campaign and Manafort's plan to win the election. That briefing encompassed the campaign's messaging and its internal polling data. According to Gates, it also included discussions of, quote, battleground states, which Manafort identified as Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. Manafort did not refer explicitly to, quote, battleground states in his telling of the August 2nd discussion. Just a moment. I'm trying to make sure I'm getting to the. Okay, we're on page 149. Now, third, according to Gates, beg your pardon? No, that was them giving their no. Remember, it started off second. This is just them giving the Congress some notes they can go to and refer to find what led to what they had just said. Manafort did not refer explicitly to battleground states. Notice this. Now, I'm going to take the time to do this to you. I see the difference in the size of the writing and everything. I know what I'm reading. It says, second, Manafort briefed Kilimnik on the state of the FBI is going point by point. And after talking about the first thing, then it says, second, Manafort briefed Kilimnik on the state of the Trump campaign and Manafort's plan to win the election. That briefing encompassed campaign messaging and its internal polling data. According to Gates, it also included discussions of, quote, battleground states, which Manafort identified in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. Manafort did not refer explicitly to, quote, unquote, battleground states in his telling of the August 2nd discussion. Then it says, third, not prime minister, you know, so that's what I was trying to show you. Third, see, whenever I've come to the conclusion that when they start sending us to Fabrizio at 3-5 and all of that, that's talking about reference material that the Congress can go to and see what made them say what had just been said. Yes. So I'm not slow. I go a little slow sometimes, but I catch on pretty quick. 149. Third, according to Gates and what Kilimnik told Patton, Manafort and Kilimnik discussed two sets of financial disputes related to Manafort's previous work in the region. Those consisted of the unresolved Deripaska lawsuit and the funds that the opposition bloc owed to Manafort for his political consulting work and how Manafort might be able to obtain payment. After the meeting, Gates and Manafort both stated that they left separately from Kilimnik because they knew the media was tracking Manafort and wanted to avoid media reporting on his connections to Kilimnik. Now you see why they keep telling you that most of the leadership of America, presidents, former presidents especially, have told you that the Democratic Republic, one of the prime things that it needs is a free press to hold those in authority accountable. Because if you don't have the press informing the people of what, you're supposed to dig, the press supposed to be the watchdog. When you stifle them, then you have cut your eyes and ears off into the people that you entrusted. Notice the word, entrusted with authority over you. But they ain't, And since this book says ain't nobody righteous, then them people better watching, man. But if you got a press that's bought and paid for, if the people in authority control the press, you got a problem. You got a serious problem. Anyway, it says post-resignation activities, subtitle C. Manafort resigned from the Trump campaign in mid-August 2016, approximately 2 weeks after his second meeting with Kalemnik. Amidst negative media reporting, we're going to go for probably another half hour, and then I'm going to cut this. Amidst negative media reporting about his political consulting work for the pro-Russian party of regions in Ukraine. Despite his resignation, Manafort continued to offer advice to various campaign officials through the November election. He just publicly resigned, but privately he was still working with him. Manafort told Gates that he still spoke with Kushner, Bannon, and candidate Trump. And some of those post-resignation contacts are documented in emails. For example, on October 21st, 2016, Manafort sent Kushner an email and attached a strategy memorandum proposing that the campaign make the case against Clinton. So why did he make a public resignation? To make the press go away. Huh? Yeah. You know that, I mean, if you got a dog in the yard and he watching and barking at you, and you trying to break in, then you got to make the dog think you done went away, right? And so the dog go away, and then maybe you put something out there to keep your smell down, put some pepper or something out there, where the dog don't get a whiff of you coming through the backyard. Is that right? All right. That, for example, on October the 21st, 2016, Manafort sent Kushner an email and attached a strategy memorandum proposing that the campaign make the case against Clinton, quote, as the failed and corrupt champion of the establishment. Ain't that something? And that, now, who gave the people who caused the crash of 2008 all the money back that they wind up having to pay for what they did? Who gave it back to them? Now, who's the champion of the establishment? The very one who accused the other person. And what establishment? See, and that's something else you have to remember. What establishment? Those who had established themselves as the wealthy ones, the ones to look up to, the ones that control the commerce and the banks and all of this kind of thing, those are the establishments. People, let me tell you something about people who make it by misusing others and do it for years. They never change. You know why? For the same reason, a tree that grows crooked, once it's grown, it can't be straightened out. It's hardened in crookedness. The more a person tricks their way into authority, tricks their way into power, abuses their way into notoriety and wealth, the more that way seems right to them. After a while, anybody who tries to stop them in their eyes is deemed to be wrong. They don't understand how it goes. Right? And that's why you have wicked people in positions of power. But when the wicked spring forth as the grass, like now, it's that they shall be cut off forever. I know you don't believe it. That's all right. You will believe it. For example, on August 21st, 2016, Manafort sent Kushner an email and attached a strategy memorandum proposing that the campaign make the case against Clinton, quote, as the failed and corrupt champion of the establishment, and that, quote, WikiLeaks provides the Trump campaign the ability to make the case in a very credible way by using the words of Clinton, its campaign officials, and DNC members. Later, when he say by using their words, by misusing and twisting their words. You know, people love to do that. You saw Geno Jennings, right? Remember when Geno Jennings tried to twist what I was saying? And he would have got away with it if I hadn't been standing there. Later in a November 5th, 2016, email to Kushner entitled, quote, securing the victory. Securing the victory. I guess they already knew something, huh? Securing the victory how? Hadn't been no victory. But how do you secure the victory? In other words, they done rigged the thing and got into these voting machines and making them do what they want them to do. Huh? Securing the victory. Manafort stated that he was really feeling good about our prospects on Tuesday and focusing on preserving the victory. Huh? What needed preserving? You got to make it look like, you know, you got to misdirect the attention from them machines to something else. Huh? How you satisfy at both sides? You give Hillary the popular vote, but where it counts, you get at the Trump. The electoral votes get him to Trump. Huh? People try to figure out how it go or whatever. They still ain't figured out that. And now they've been told that some of the voting places were hacked. I warned them about them machines before they had that election. Go back. Bring it up. You see. I've been told y'all about them voting machines. When I saw what could be done with these computers, I mean, it's amazing to me how a brother can sit at home and something go wrong with my computer. And he said, look, do this. He said, you see that team viewer thing there? Click on it. And then he talked me through it. And then next thing I know, he in my computer. You don't even have to be working for them people. You could be a friend of somebody. You could make friends with somebody in the place where the computers are accessible. And then you get used to coming back and forth in there. Next thing you know, people see you over there and they used to seeing you there. And then you can just get in there and give somebody team view and let them get in there and put in there what they want so that when there ain't nobody there, you can turn the computer on, put it in sleep mode, and turn it back on and do what you want to do. You can't do that with paper. But anyway, y'all used to be smarter than that. And since I used to be dumber than I am now, and I learned a lot from you, I'll give some of it back. At least I'm offering it back. It's up to you to not be too proud to accept it. I mean, you say I ain't too proud. Master Farad Muhammad looked like a white man. His skin ain't had nothing to do with what was in his head. And I honor him just like I honor the one who told me about him. You better wake up. Knowledge don't care who know it. Now, it says Manafort stated that he was, quote, really feeling good about our prospects on Tuesday and focusing on preserving the victory. And see, the word preserving means, I mean, if you got victory, well, what you got to preserve? There ain't nothing to preserve. No, preserve the illusion that the election was fair. Huh? All right, let's go on. And that he was concerned the Clinton campaign would respond to a loss by, quote, moving immediately to discredit the Trump victory. Why would he think that they would be moving to discredit the Trump victory? Why? Why would he even think that? Because it was a crooked election. That the Clinton campaign would respond to a loss by moving, quote, moving immediately to discredit the Trump victory and claim voter fraud and cyber fraud, including the claim that the Russians have hacked into the voting machines and tampered with the results, and now it came out they did. Now you see why Doofus didn't want us to read this. Now you see why I got so angry with him. Trump was elected president on November 8th, 2016. Manafort told the office that in the wake of Trump's victory, he was not interested in an administrative job. Manafort instead preferred to stay on the, quote, outside, unquote, and monetize his campaign position to generate business given his familiarity and relationship with Trump and the incoming administration. Now do you understand? Donald Trump understood and knows that that election was rigged. He knows it. Why you think he don't care what he says or what he does? And who he says it about or does it too? Now you understand why he was attacking the FBI. Hear the words out of Manafort's own mouth: to preserve the victory. Preserves, you know what happens when you preserve something? It's already cooked. But you got to seal it off and make sure that outside air don't get in. Got to make sure that people don't look too close at how that process was done, lest they see that it's a spoiled election. It's tainted. So you run all over the country and every day holler, witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. Let me tell all of you something. When those bloodthirsty people who so bloodthirsty decide that they want to take up arms against American people, don't be afraid of them. They the only ones gonna wind up dying. You hear me? And don't feel sorry for them. Why would you feel sorry for somebody who was plotting your murder? You done seen Allah take people who thought they was getting ready to go kill somebody. Next thing you know, they commit suicide. You done seen that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you're going to see people killing each other out there in the street and their blood running down in the gutter of the street. You ain't going to be able to get away from that. That's coming. But the ones that is coming for is the ones that deserve it. The very ones who so anxious to shed other people's blood is the ones whose blood is going to be shed. Trump was elected president on November. Well, Trump was elected president on November 8th, 2016. Manafort told the office that in the wake of Trump's victory, he was not interested in an administration job. Manafort instead preferred to stay on the quote outside and monetize his campaign position to generate business, given his familiarity and relationship with Trump and the incoming administration. Manafort appeared to follow that plan as he traveled to the Middle East, Cuba, South Korea, Japan, and China, and was paid to explain what a Trump presidency would entail. Now, how would Manafort know what a Trump presidency will entail? Unless somebody was handling your president. Ain't nobody supposed to know what the presidency will entail but the president and his administration. They decide what is going on. But Manafort traveling around telling people what to expect. Miss Clinton sure told the truth. Say, a puppet president. And he said he was dumbfounded. He said, no puppet, no puppet, no puppet. You the puppet. But, you know, it's like he got caught with his hand in the jar of cookies. No cookies, no cookies. That's the way you talk when you ain't got no words to defend yourself. Manafort's activities in early 2017 included meetings relating to Ukraine and Russia. Huh? Page 150. The first meeting which took place in Madrid, Spain, in January 2017 was with Georgy Oganov. Oganov, who had previously worked at the Russian embassy in the United States, was a senior executive at a Deripaska company and was believed to report directly to Deripaska. Manafort initially denied attending the meeting. When he later acknowledged it, he claimed that the meeting had been arranged by his lawyers and concerned only the Pericles lawsuit. Pardon me. Other evidence, however, provides reason to doubt Manafort's statement that the sole topic of the meeting was the Pericles lawsuit. In particular, text messages to Manafort from a number associated with Kalimnik suggest that Kalimnik and Boryorkin, not Manafort's counsel, had arranged the meeting between Manafort and Oganov. Kalimnik's message states that the meeting was supposed to be, quote, not about money or Pericles, but, quote, instead about recreating the old friendship, unquote, ostensibly between Manafort and Deripaska, quote, and talking about global politics. Manafort also replied by text that he, quote, needs this finished before January 20th, unquote, which appears to be a reference to resolving Pericles before the inauguration. On January 15, 2017, 3 days after his return from Madrid, Manafort emailed KT, I guess Kalimnik, KT McFarlane, excuse me. He emailed KT McFarlane, who was at that time designated to be Deputy National Security Advisor and was formally appointed to that position on January 20th, 2017. Manafort's January 15 email to McFarlane stated, quote, I have some important information I want to share that I picked up on my travels over the last month. Manafort told the office that the email referred to an issue regarding Cuba, not Russia or Ukraine, and Manafort had traveled to Cuba in the past month. Either way, McFarlane, who was advised by Flynn not to respond to the Manafort inquiry, appears not to have responded to Manafort. Manafort told the office of the FBI that around the time of the presidential inauguration in January, he met with Kalimnik and Ukraine oligarch Serhiy Lyovochkin at the Westin Hotel in Alexandria, Virginia. During this meeting, Kalimnik again asked that Yanukovych, During this meeting, Kalimnik again discussed the Yanukovych peace plan that he had broached at the August 2nd meeting, and in a detailed December 8th, 2016 message found in Kalimnik's DMP email account. In that December 8th email, which Manafort acknowledged having read, Kalimnik wrote, quote, all that all that is required to start the process is a very minor wink or a slight push from DT, Donald Trump, in apparent reference to President-elect Trump. See, they didn't do it like I just did. They said apparently they talking about Donald Trump being totally professional about it, huh? Then it says, and quote, and a decision to authorize you to be a special representative, and that has apostrophes next to it, special representative, and manage this process, end quote. Kalimnik assured Manifest with that authority, he, quote, could start the process and within 10 days visit Russia. Yanukovych guarantees your reception at the very top level, end quote. And that, quote, DT could have peace in Ukraine basically within a few months after inauguration. As noted above, and redaction, and statements to the Office of the FBI, Manafort sought to qualify his engagement on and support for the plan. And then it's a bunch of redactions about grand jury information. On February 26, 2017, Manafort met Kalimnik in Madrid, where Kalimnik had flown from Moscow. In his first two interviews with the Office of FBI, Manafort denied meeting with Kalimnik on his Madrid trip. And then, after being confronted with documentary evidence that Kalimnik was in Madrid at the same time as him, recognized that he met him in Madrid. See how he was sitting up there lying? Manafort said that Kalimnik had updated him on a criminal investigation into so-called Black Ledger, quote unquote, Black Ledger payments to Manafort that was being conducted by Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau. Under the table money. Manafort, that's me saying that ain't in this report. Manafort remained in contact with Kalimnik throughout 2017 and into the spring of 2018. These contacts, page 152, these contacts excuse me for saying these, those contacts included matters pertaining to the criminal charges brought by the Office of the FBI and the Ukraine peace plan. In early 2018, Manafort retained his longtime polling firm to craft a draft poll in Ukraine, sent the pollsters a 3-page primer on the plan sent by Kalimnik and worked with Kalimnik to formulate the polling questions. The primer sent to the pollsters specifically called for the United States and President Trump to support the autonomous Republic of Donbass with Yanukovych as prime minister. And a series of questions in the draft poll asked for opinions on Yovanovitch's role in resolving the conflict in Donbass. The poll was not solely about Donbass. It also sought participants' views on leaders apart from Yanukovych, as, pardon me, Yanukovych. I don't know why I say Yanukovych. Well, Yanukovych, as they pertained to the 2019 Ukraine presidential election. The office has not uncovered evidence, the office of the FBI have not uncovered evidence that Manafort brought the Ukraine peace plan to the attention of the Trump campaign or the Trump administration. Kalimnik continued his efforts to promote the peace plan to the executive branch. In other words, in parentheses, U.S. Department of State, into the summer of 2018. Subtitle B, we on page 152. Trump was elected president, post-election and transition period contacts. This is subtitle B, subject matter, post-election and transition period contacts. Trump was elected president on November 8th, 2016. Beginning immediately after the election, individuals connected to the Russian government started contacting officials on the Trump campaign and transition team through multiple channels, sometimes through Russian Ambassador Kislyak, and at other times through individuals who sought reliable contacts through U.S. persons not formally tied to the campaign or transition team. The most senior levels of the Russian government encouraged these efforts. The investigation did not establish that these efforts reflected or constituted coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia in its election interference activities. Subtitle 1, immediate post-election activity. As soon as news broke that Trump had been elected president, Russian government officials and prominent Russian businessmen began trying to make inroads into the new administration. They appeared not to have pre-existing contacts and struggled to connect with senior officials around the president-elect. The only reason they was having trouble was because they couldn't believe it worked. That's the only thing that made it slow for them to get in, because it wasn't a whole lot of them on board of thinking that it would be successful. But they had to try. They was trying. They was saying, well, we gonna try. So they were surprised when it worked. Trump was surprised. Now, if he really was running for president, why was he surprised? Because he could not believe that all of that crazy talk he was doing winded him up in the White House. But you know, that's what happens when you are ungrateful to a person for no reason other than that their skin was black. If President Obama had been a white president, you'd still be talking about how great he was. Yes, you would. You didn't have sense enough to realize that whatever he was the product of what America had produced. The United States produced him. The United States helped produce me. And you're too stupid to even acknowledge your own child. You're a fool. And you don't wake up soon, you ain't gonna wake up at all. So it says they appeared not to have pre-existing contacts and struggled to connect with senior officials around the president-elect. As explained below, those efforts entailed both official contact through the Russian embassy in the United States and outreaches, sanctioned at high levels of the Russian government through business rather than political contacts. Look at the people that Donald Trump appointed to be in positions in the United States sensitive governmental agencies and whatnot. He put people in positions that didn't know no more about those agencies than he knew about presidents. He wasn't qualified to be president, and the people he put in positions of authority wasn't qualified for the things he put them in. Standing up there talking about he know the best people. Any man, let me tell you something. Anytime a man makes a living out of a show that the most prominent part of the show is that who is he going to fire next? Now, I didn't even look at that show, The Apprentice. I don't even what you got out of looking at something like that. Because in the first place, if people that come into your company always wind up getting fired, it just shows you don't know how to choose people. That's all that shows to me. I know something about business. If you was working for me, and every time I look up, I got to, I see somebody getting fired, I wouldn't be so much as looking at them. I'd be looking at you. Man, what are you doing? You can't run no business if you ain't running business and hiring competent people. And that man's so cowardly, he don't even want to look at people when he's firing them. And you running around here raving about him. It's because you a bigger fool than him. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi asked, what his name, Han Solo, when he said, "You follow this foolish old man." He said, and Obi-Wan said, "Well, who's the bigger fool, the fool or the fool who follows him?" If I was Hans, I'd say, "Look, y'all need to take that line out of there, man. I can't go for that. Don't let me be." And Hans didn't say nothing, which means that was over his head. He didn't realize that he had been thrown. The insult he threw at Obi-Wan flew back in his face. It's just like, you notice all them rednecks out there done learn to keep their mouth shut at me. And black necks too. Your skin, when you get full of blood, you don't turn red, your skin get darker. So, don't throw it at me, because I'll throw it right back at you. You know where the wind come from? It comes from the sun. That's the sun drawing up the water vapor into the rotation of the earth, which turns at 1,037 1/3 miles per hour on its axis. And when that water vapor is drawn up off the ocean, then it gets caught up into the turning and it creates wind. Do you understand? So whatever you throw at me, I just throw it back out. I make it blow back in your face. You ain't got nothing to throw at me, boy. Better keep your mouth shut. I ain't got to apologize to you for being the Son of Man. You owe me an apology for coming in here disrespecting me. It's after 3. I know y'all got things, things to do and people to see. So I'm gonna let you get on out of here and do what you want to do. So may Allah bless us. And we left off at page 153. So that's where we'll take it up tomorrow. And until then, did anyone have something they wanted to ask me before I let you go? If you do, I will. Yes.
Since those states that like Michigan, I think that's why they want to pull my data. Those states.
The polling data they wanted was to know what they were. Um, give him the microphone so he can ask that question and people can hear what he's asking.
I was asking that.
Come on now, talk into the thing so we can hear
I
you.
was asking that since Michigan, Pennsylvania, and other states that were mentioned in the Mueller report were swing states, that the polling data that was sent to them, do you think that we're using that to know what states to target to change the data to make President Trump win? Because those were the states that got him that election win.
Like that's what I was saying earlier, that they wanted the polling data so they could see what the result of what they was doing was. You know, it does no good to try to interfere if you don't know what effect it's having. It may be having a negative effect, and in that case, you got to stop. But how would they know without the polling data? Do you understand? And so they got the polling data from Manafort. Now you're going to tell me that Donald Trump hired Manafort to come into his campaign and run it, but he didn't know what Manafort was doing? This is this man that you acknowledge he does know something about business. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get into all them banks and trick them into loaning him money to do a lot of the stuff he's been doing. He ain't totally ignorant when it comes to business. And they talk about Trump. He wants to be in on everything that concerns him. So you're going to tell me that you believe Manafort was doing all of these crooked things, but Donald Trump didn't know nothing about it? You know better? We all know better. And remember, Donald Trump said, if I lose, it was rigged. Is that what he said? Well, if you done already rigged it. Now, I remember, well, I got to show you this. You know, ain't you glad I got a good memory? Let me show you something here. Y'all just give me a minute here, and I'm gonna turn it off in a minute. But first, you need to see this. Come on. There.
Zyrtec starts working hard at hour 1.
Just give me a minute.
Kick off the just had that face of mine.
Now watch this. Now watch this. This reminds me of what Donald Trump was saying. Remember, he said, "If I lose, it was rigged." Huh? Well, if you done already rigged something, and you know that it's rigged in your favor, and then you lose, you know somebody else got in there and did what you did, huh? So you ain't the only one that's been cheating, huh? Is that right? So now watch this.
Stack me a cooler fry. Come on. Well, we'll be in the station in another hour. The other guys are the big news. You're still here. I just had that face of mine. I'll cut you down quick.
Just a moment.
You want crazy yet? Nothing. I want him out of there earlier. I'm gonna bust that bastard bookie in one pay. Morning to you, Mr. Jameson. You're even?
Now you heard him tell him to stack him a deck, right? So he gonna go in there and cheat. Now watch what happened.
Go ahead. You stayed in front of me, too.
Now you saw that hand that Paul Newman got there. But watch when they have the showdown, watch what happens.
$500. Air 5, 1,000. I'll fold. I'll play. Cards. 2. And 4 jacks. You owe me 15 grand, pal.
See now, homeboy sitting there mad because he got out and cheated. Do you understand? And not only had he got out cheated, he was sitting there. He didn't know they had already took his wallet. Do you understand? And so when he got ready to pay, he didn't have no money. And then they fronted him on that. So he left out of there pretty bad. Watch when he get ready to pay after he lost. Watch what happened.
Must have left my wallet in my room. Don't hand me into that crap. When you come to a game like this, you bring your money.
That was his money. But they had already paid this woman to at least they was in partners. They had pickpocketed him. And now watch what he says when he get behind the closed doors about cheating. Watch this.
You won't take a Chicago and you're Welsh. You won't be able to get a game of jacks. Cash me in for the rest of these phones. You're on, kid. I can tell you it's a hard act to follow. How'd it go? You got working money. Hey, yeah. Steaming. Yeah. Give me the slips. We can't let him get away with it. What was I supposed to do? Call him for cheating better than me in front of the others?
So what you want me to do? Call him for cheating better than me in front of the other. Well, that's what Donald Trump reminded me of when he was standing up there talking about if he lose, it was rigged. Why would he say that? It's because he had already known that Russia was interfering in the election and those machines had been tampered with. You see, the tampering in the internet, that was the diversion. The real tampering was with the machines. So, anyway, if you want your elections to be your elections, you need to go back to the paper ballot. Let that be the ballot that people cast. You can still use the voting machines. That way the ballots will be marked perfectly. But the final vote, you should look at it when it print out. If it's what you printed out, stick it in an envelope, cast it. That won't take but a few minutes. Don't take no longer than standing up there when you're looking at the machine after it's supposedly showing you what you voted for. Just because it's showing you what you pressed in don't mean that that's what's going out. You notice ain't nobody offering me no rebuttal. You know why? Oh, there's plenty of them out there that would like to say, well, man, you conspiracy theory or whatever. This ain't no theory. Anybody that has a computer knows that people get in your computer and make it do things so they can sell you some insurance. All kind of malware, spyware. What's that thing that you call it, Brother Michael, when you, I don't know what's happening here. Y'all give me a minute here. My when you understand with your own personal computer that stuff get in there that you don't know how it got in there, and you want to trust something like that with your vote, wake up, people. One of the reasons why your elections was always your elections was because you had the last say over what went in that box. And you knew what you put in that box. And both sides were standing there looking at them boxes, and them boxes was watched from the time they left from the time they were sealed to the time they got where they were going. That's how you take your country back. Take your vote back. All right. Now, any more questions before I let y'all get out of here? Well then, may Allah bless us all and keep us safe and in our right minds. May Allah's salam alaikum. Turn them cameras off this time.